In this video, we will show you how to replace your driver's side outer tie rod end on this Dodge Ram. This is part of your front steering and suspension, located behind your front wheel. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. Safely raise and support the front of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. To remove your wheel, let's start by removing all 5 of our 21mm lug nuts, and then we can remove that wheel. A quick inspection of the hardware as we continue on, replace as necessary. Let's make our way safely under the vehicle now. We can have a close look at that outer tie rod end, the sleeve, and the drag link making its way across. At the sleeve here, we want to confirm that this does actually move and we don't have to replace it as part of this job. To loosen this, you're going to find that you have 2 15mm headed mounting bolts. We'll loosen those so the sleeve clamps are loose on the sleeve itself. Now once we've done that, we'll continue on with some penetrant directly inside of this port on the sleeve. Now continuing from here, there's typically a sleeve tool that will have a small hook and you can grab into this area and gently start pulling it one direction or the other. You could also carefully use a pry bar directly inside this slot, gently turning it, and then of course you could also use some long pliers to take hold of it and twist it as needed. Going to work in that lubricant here. Now we'll pause in the approximate location that it was at and we'll continue on by making a measurement. When we do separate these two ends from each other with this sleeve, we want to make sure when we reinstall everything, it'll be at approximately the same adjustment. This is for alignment purposes. We'll make our way from one side stud all the way over here on the passenger side to that driver's side tie rod stud. I can see my measurement and I'll take note. Now focusing on the adjustment sleeve itself, try to take a peek inside the slot. Looking inside this area, you should be able to see the threaded portion of each one of the 2 tie rod ends. We have the outer tie rod end and what would be considered the inner tie rod end or drag link here. What we're looking for is the threaded portions. When you do go to remove your part, you want to make sure that you have this timed properly. But generally, as long as you have it so each one of the threaded portions are pretty much the same distance in, you do not need to fully remove the entire thing. Typically, you can just loosen this and remove the unit itself. Continuing from there, the next thing I always like to do is make my way back over here to this piece of mounting hardware. We're going to snug this, pinching it up against the drag link so we can make our way all the way to the outside of the outer tie rod end to remove the mounting nut and then eventually separate the outer tie rod end from the sleeve itself. To start removing the outer tie rod end from the steering knuckle, we're going to remove the nut. Typically the nut is held in place with a locking cotter pan. You can remove that and dispose of it properly. If yours is rusted and rotted like ours, typically it's going to break off in that tie rod end. We're not super worried about it. We're replacing it anyways. I'll just trim that off. For the outer tie rod end nut, we'll be using a 21mm. Once you have that removed, a quick inspection, start it back on, just a couple threads. Penetrant in this area. Continuing on to separate this, you could use a tie rod separator tool, a pickle fork, or even just a hammer and lightly tap on the steering knuckle here, causing vibration, driving this down and out. Continuing from here, we'll hold on to that tie rod end, go ahead and remove that nut, set it aside for recycling. At this point, you can start unscrewing the outer tie rod end from the sleeve itself. When doing so, count the amount of turns it takes to remove the tie rod end from the sleeve. That's the amount of turns you will want to install the brand new tie rod end. There's one, we'll continue on. 2, and so on. I had 37 turns, your results may vary, take note of that, and then take a quick inspection of the inside of your tie rod end sleeve. If it looks like it's rotted and damaged, you want to go ahead and replace the sleeve itself. Now after cleaning inside the hole, I've given it a thorough inspection, we'll continue on with some anti-seize inside this area. Okay friend, it's time to install our brand new outer tie rod end. When installing this, we're going to, of course, start it in by hand. We'll be doing all the rotations by hand as well. You never want to use an impact tool, which can cause damage to the boot itself or even the socket of the tie rod end. Just want to make sure you start it in straight. There we are. We got 1, 2, 3, and so on. After counting the amount of turns, we're sure we were exactly where we had removed it. We'll continue on to installing this into the steering knuckle. You can go ahead and tug that around as necessary. Slide that straight on up and through and continue on with your brand new castle nut up along the top there. Let's snug up the mounting nut and we'll torque that to 60 foot-pounds. Now once you have that torqued to 60 foot-pounds, the next thing you need to do is pay attention to the slots on the mounting nut in comparison to the hole that makes its way through the tie rod stud. You want to make sure you have it aligned so you can put through your locking cotter pin. If it's not aligned, continue tightening the nut until the very next slot is properly aligned. Just check this. Looks like I got to go a little bit further on my application here. Once you have that slid through, you can go ahead and peen it over so there's no way this nut can loosen up on you while you're driving down the road. Before you tighten the last piece of hardware on your adjustment sleeve, let's quickly make a measurement all the way across the tie rod ends here, confirming we're at the proper adjustment. There we are. You can tell that we're pretty close to where we need to be. The alignment professional will take care of the rest. Continue back at the sleeve. If you find that you do have to make an adjustment one direction or the other, you want to go ahead and loosen up this clamp here. You can make the adjustment with the sleeve as necessary. Once you've done so, continue on to tightening each piece of hardware. A quick note when tightening the sleeve, make sure you have it so the opening of the clamp is opposite to the slot on the sleeve itself. After snugging it, we're just going to torque this to 40 foot-pounds. Just double check the other one as well. Start on all 5 of your 21mm lug nuts. We'll bottom them out and then torque them to 115 foot-pounds. Now I've got the wheel back on the ground, preventing it from spinning on me. We'll be torquing each one of these lug nuts to 115 in a crisscross manner. Torqued. Okay friend, we finished the installation of our outer tie rod ends. The next thing you want to do is go ahead and take your vehicle for a road test down to your local alignment shop. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.